My name is Valerie Kornblatt-Schifrin, and I am here today to talk with you about chronic disease self-management and how to manage your chronic diseases so you can live your life. We're here today to get a clear understanding of chronic disease as a primary health challenge. As we know it right now, 78% of adults 55 plus have chronic conditions. This rate increases to 85% in adults 65 plus. So what we do know is that health can be built daily. What is chronic disease? We're going to talk today about defining health as more than the absence of disease. We're going to talk about health as a whole system regulation. We're going to talk about chronic disease as the primary health challenge today. And we're going to talk about how we can build our health daily, not just medically. So first we'll begin, what is chronic disease by definition? Chronic disease is a condition that lasts 1 year or more. As an example, you may take medication or undergo therapies for chronic conditions. It often requires ongoing management for certain symptoms and can limit our daily function. This may be from pain, this could be the side effects of medication, and this could be poor sleeping pattern in life. Some examples of chronic diseases are diabetes, heart disease, hypertension. Is anybody in here on high blood pressure medication for hypertension? Okay. Chronic pain conditions. It could be back pain. It could be post-surgery pain. It could be bouts of emotional dysregulation that show up as pain. So you may ask, what is happening to my body? I'm going to talk to you a little bit about the science behind chronic disease. At the biological level, chronic inflammation drives disease progression. So, has anybody here been told to try an anti-inflammatory diet? Yes, okay. Inflammation is a driver of chronic disease. And so many people have heard of, may be practicing, or know somebody who's working with an anti-inflammatory diet. Chronic inflammation drives progression. Insulin resistance affects our glucose metabolism. Our bodies are fighting to break down sugars. And the first thing our body recognizes is glucose. Insulin resistance is our body's inability to produce enough insulin, okay, with our pancreas. So our body looks to other organs to help out, okay? This is when our body starts breaking down the ability to balance sugar in our blood, okay? Another name for sugar is glucose, okay? Hormonal imbalance can disrupt energy and recovery. When we have a hormonal imbalance, we very often waver from one side to another. There's a fight or flight response when our body feels like it's threatened or in danger. Our body works from the inside to protect us by secreting hormones, cortisol and adrenaline. Have you ever been in a situation where you're in a huge hurry and the adrenaline takes over and you're almost not yourself? It's adrenaline. Those are hormones that drive us because they see our body is in a threat. Okay, so they're there to protect us. The other side of that is rest and digest. That's your dopamine, your serotonin, your oxytocin. Those are your happy, feel-good hormones. So we basically live our lives treading between those two, okay? Mitochondrial dysfunction, that can also be on the biological level, chronic disease. And basically that means if our stomach is out of balance, okay? Our stomach says a lot to our brain receives messages and then fires off signals. Most of it comes from our stomach. And if there's an imbalance, the rest of your body will follow suit. The key concept here is that our bodies become dysregulated over time. It could be from lifestyle, nutrition, it could be from genetics, it could be from chronic conditions, okay? So how does this impact the population? We know that 60% of adults have at least one chronic condition. We also know that 40% of adults have 2 or more. So chronic disease ends up accounting for 90% of all healthcare costs, okay? This is a very wide systemic issue, and we either have or know someone that has chronic conditions. It's all over society, okay? So making daily decisions with chronic conditions can influence our health many ways. Number one, with nutrition. Nutrition gives our body what it needs to work. So when nutrition is proper, you eat, your body responds, it takes what it needs, and it leaves the rest for waste. That would be considered a proper nutritional system, okay? Sleep. Blood sugar is stable when we sleep. That's what happens overnight, okay? Our blood sugar balances out overnight when we're sleeping. That's also the time that our liver makes cholesterol, when we're sleeping. So if anybody here is on a statin, they may have you take your statin in the evening to suppress that cholesterol production. Movement. Oxygen hates disease, okay? So when you move, you let that oxygen flow in your body, that is preventative from disease forming, okay? So movement, it's also great for your mood. A simple 10-minute walk can actually shift the biology in your mind, okay? So nothing massive or major. Simple little steps to take can really be beneficial. Stress management also. We need to keep our hormones balanced. I just talked about the 2 different systems we have and keeping those things balanced. How do we do that? Well, we do that by finding ways to manage stress. We do that by finding ways to regulate our own system, okay? And social connection. This allows us to continue our lives feeling wanted and needed. This could be multiple sources. It could be church, it could be family, it could be close friendship relationships, it could be volunteer work. There's ways to connect all over. So those are some of the decisions that we make every day in our own lives. And those are some of the big decisions that can really dictate the outcome of good health. Each decision affects a different part of our body, a part of that system. For example, blood sugar. Blood sugar, our liver stores glucose and releases it when we sleep to keep things steady. Stress will heighten our hormones. Poor sleep disrupts our body's ability to heal and recover, because that's what sleep does for us. That is the time of restore, relax, and restoration is sleep. A very, very big component is recovery when we sleep, okay? And we need to make sure we're doing what we can, right? So how do we do that? We can practice regular sleep patterns. Does anybody here have any techniques or things they do to get to sleep in the evening? Anybody on the regular? Okay. Yeah, what do you do?
I ask Alexa to play lullaby music for me for 3 hours.
3 hours, beautiful. Do you make it through the full 3 hours?
Never.
Never, never. That's something, and do you do that all the time?
I do.
So that's part of your system, right, to help you. That's your system knowing it's time to rest. It's a wonderful thing. Something regular in the evening, if anybody here has any kind of problem sleeping. Does anybody have any issues with sleep?
I take medication for sleep.
Do you? Okay.
And if I don't take it, I have a hard time going to sleep, and I wake up and can't go back to sleep. So I've been taking it for years.
What is it?
Solpaden.
Okay.
It
Okay.
doesn't have any. It wears off after 8 hours.
So it's a slow release.
I guess, but I wake up once, I have to go to the bathroom, but it lasts 8 hours, so I don't have to set an alarm. If I take it at 10, I just wake up.
You wake up at 6, and so it helps you.
And I'm not.
You don't feel groggy, and you don't feel.
No.
Okay, good. So you've got full
That's the only
energy.
reason I think the doctor let me stay on it for so many years.
Because you're feeling okay the next day.
Yeah.
Yeah. Great. And if that's needed and you need that to sleep, that's your system, right? That's something that you do every night. You know you're going to do it. It's predictability also, right? So we're not really striving for perfection in daily habits to manage our lives. We're really looking for predictability. These nighttime routines is an example of that. We talked a little bit about inflammatory diet. Inflammation is a buzzword. Everybody's talking about it. It's the core. It is the core of almost all disease, okay? Nervous system balance is also what can be affected by some of these decisions. We talk a lot about breathing and breath work and making sure that we are balanced and feeling regulated, because if we don't feel regulated, and we're moving about, perhaps driving a car, we're impaired, okay? So poor sleep can impair us. Our nervous system can impair us. If you've had a stressful conversation or just feeling a little irritable, it affects your entire body. So it starts on the inside with how you feel and the hormones that are released. But I can tell you, if you're moving around, likely your balance will be compromised, and there in turn is a fall risk. So your nervous system, if it's balanced, is also working to keep you balanced physically, okay? So we want to try and drive that nervous system and make sure that we are as regulated, because it affects our physical ability, okay, to get around as well. So that's something else that's affected and influenced by our daily decisions. Does anybody have any questions about that? Yes.
I would have a question. Not this sister, but my other sister tried taking the sleep medicine. She was eating at night. She had been online to order some kind of facial cream or something, and she went to bed, and Dolly got up in the middle of the night and ordered it, and it got delivered, and she got and she didn't remember. But the eating at night and wandering around the house is what scared her.
Was that from the medication?
Yes, because she stopped it. She was getting up and she didn't realize it, but she was eating like Cheetos and had orange fingers in the morning. And she'd find an empty beer bottle, and she doesn't even drink, she hardly ever drinks beer.
And didn't remember.
And didn't remember it.
That's a real thing.
Yeah.
And I don't know, and I'm
It's bad.
right. I'm not a doctor, and I don't know enough about that. But sleep disturbances, and there is something where people get up and they do things. There was a woman who ate a whole jar of peanut butter, and she didn't remember, but woke up and didn't remember. So something is going on inside, and perhaps the medication has something to do with what actually ends up happening. But very interesting. That's very interesting. Understanding that, getting up once to go to the bathroom at night is pretty common amongst everyone, maybe even a second time, but the repetition of getting up in the middle of the night is something that definitely warrants a call to the doctor. To be up 4 and 5 times a night is really not part of that circadian rhythm of sleep, okay? And that can also affect physical symptoms too. If you're not well slept and you jump in a car the next day, it's like driving drunk. You're impaired, okay? So all parts of you kind of feel it. Even though it's sleep, your whole body feels it. So to define self-management, how can we define this? We can say that we're actively participating in our health. We can find ways to make our own decisions. What does that mean for us? That might mean trying or not trying a new therapy that's been suggested. It might mean trying a new protocol of medication. If you've been on one and you're not feeling the way you need to be feeling, your doctor may ask you to try something different. All of those decisions, that's self-management, okay? That's what we do in order to have the highest quality of living, is making those decisions. Also, I want to talk about information. We live in a huge information highway now, and where we get our information is as important as the information that's coming along. So my suggestion to you is that online, there's a lot of information. You may see celebrities attached to some of this information, okay? Familiar names and faces. I will say to you, if the website has a .org, a .edu, or a .gov, likely it is a respected source. If it is something that's like a .net or something you see Dr. Oz is pushing a pineapple juice that's going to help arthritis, those things I would stop and I would really kind of give that a little bit more discernment and perhaps ask questions to your medical team to find out. But when you're gathering information as it pertains to managing your own self, I would look for the GOV, the EDU, look for NIH and medical schools, Mayo Clinic, Cleveland Clinic, Harvard, MD Anderson. Those are reputable sources of information, okay? So kind of important as we're managing to filter out the things that are not for us, okay? So that we can really work with the things that are. And the internet, getting that information is also very important as we're making our informed choices. Recognizing symptoms and responding early is another way that we can self-manage. It's another definition of that. And that's really just knowing your body. And I'm going to use hydration as an example. So hydration is so important. It really kind of sets the pace for all of our organs and all of the systems in our body. In Japan, they wake up in the morning and they have a glass of water before anything else, okay? And that's to lubricate the body system for the day, okay? But if you don't know if you're thirsty as we get older, that sensation does wane a little bit, so you may not feel thirst like you used to. Very common with aging. But if your mouth starts to get dry and you say, oh, I need a glass of water, okay, so that's your awareness, right? Feeling that sensation and knowing what you need to do to remedy that, okay? That is self-management, okay? It's not replacing medical care, what I'm talking to you about. We complement that. So we work with medical teams all the time. We work with existing diagnosis. Our mission is to help you with a high-quality day-to-day life with non-medical therapies, which I will talk about more later. Sleep deficiency. I want to talk about sleep because over a third of our population has inefficient sleep. And the effects of poor sleep are just poor choices all around. Have you ever been tired, but instead you eat? Instead of going and sitting on the couch or a chair and closing your eyes for 15 minutes, you go into the kitchen and eat. Well, I do that. And so many people compensate for sleep because let's say it's 3 o'clock in the afternoon and maybe I shouldn't take a nap at 3 o'clock in the afternoon, but I'm really tired, okay? When your body feels tired, that's your cue, right? To figure out how to make that better for yourself. So if you're tired, it might mean you, instead of going to get food, which is energy, but it's short-term energy, right? Food will digest and then it's done. If you were to rest your eyes and take a 15-minute nap, you're actually getting restoration and repair, okay? Which is what our body needs when it's sending us signals for sleep. Increased cortisol. If we don't get proper sleep, our body will run on cortisol, and that's the hormone that thinks we're in danger, okay? So people who aren't slept likely are overweight, likely excess abdominal fat, likely a sense of irritability when they're tired, okay? We all get irritable and we all get crabby, but that increased cortisol moves that along, okay? So the sooner we can take a nap or the sooner we can get proper sleep, we reduce those levels of those hormones, okay? Also, your first process is glucose, is your body looking to break down sugar. That's the first thing your body looks for, okay? So whatever you're putting in your mouth, your body's looking for sugar, okay? To go into your cells to be converted to energy. That would be considered a normal body process, right? A normal system that works efficiently. If you have poor glucose regulation, I don't know if anybody in here is insulin resistant, metabolic syndrome, prediabetes. Okay. It's all tied to glucose. It's all tied to the breakdown of sugar. How does this affect us? Because if we are imbalanced with our hormones, physically, we're also imbalanced, okay? And so that can really increase the likelihood of falling. If people you know get low blood sugar, there can be very severe consequences to low blood sugar and high blood sugar. It all results in physical impairment, okay? So that's one of the chronic diseases that really affects every single system in our body. Reduced immune function. If anybody here has autoimmune disease or a compromised immune system, could be from previous cancer treatments or previous disease, reduced immune function makes sleep that much more important because that, again, is our rest and repair, okay? So if anybody has immune system, even if you're feeling sick, they say rest. That's the time that your body fixes itself, okay, to function efficiently. A sleepy person, I talked about this just a moment ago, a sleepy person walks and drives just like a drunk person, okay? That's how important sleep is to us and our physical being. Any questions on sleep? Okay, I'm gonna talk about nutrition, and I repeat myself a little bit with nutrition because I think the more we hear things, the more things may stick, okay? That's just the way our cognition works. But nutritional deficiency, over 70% of adults do not meet dietary guidelines. That is almost 3/4 of our population. Number one, high processed food intake. We have a consumer goods system in our country that allows everybody to have excessive amounts of everything, okay? And not everybody is built to process those things, right? So part of self-management is also knowing what your body responds to. You know, we all know when we eat something and it upsets us, that's not what we want. You know, so we want to look for things that work with our body. These processed foods are harming every system in our body because they act as a foreigner. You know, if you're eating your fruits and your vegetables, your body is looking for those vitamins and minerals. But when you're eating something like, and I love them, ding-dongs, okay, that is, eating a ding-dong is your body seeing that as a foreign substance because there's nothing in there to work with your body. It tastes really good, those are the sugar receptors, but there's nothing in a ding-dong that really helps your body, right? So it ends up being just calories. Okay? And when you eat that ding-dong, you're asking your pancreas to release as much insulin as you're gonna need to break that ding-dong down, okay? And sometimes our bodies just get fatigued. Our pancreas can't do it any longer, okay? That's the beginning of diabetes. That's the beginning of insulin resistance, non-alcohol fatty liver disease. Does anybody have that? Do you know what that is? Yes. Yes, okay. It's basically your pancreas can't do it all. So it's asking the other organs to help out, but the other organs aren't built for that. That's why the chemistry changes in the liver. They call it non-alcohol fatty liver disease because the liver's being asked to help, but it's not built for it, okay? It would be like you being a psychotherapist and me asking you to help me build a railroad track, as if you're an engineer, right? You know what your system is, right? That's the way it is inside of us. So what we can do is really learn to read our nutritional labels and understand what's in our food. You know, everybody says if it doesn't have a label, it's a green light. And that's true in most cases because then that means you're eating your meats and your vegetables and your produce. There are no nutritional labels on there. But there are parameters when you are looking at your nutritional labels, and it's important to look at your carbohydrates that break down into sugars. It's important to look at your sugars that break down into sugars. And then have you seen something on your labels called added sugar? Yeah. Okay, do you know what added sugar is? You wonder, you go, what's added sugar? Why isn't it just sugar, right? Sometimes in food, and I'm going to use fruit for an example. Fruit has natural sugar, okay? No one ever got fat on watermelon, by the way, but it has natural sugar. It's encased in fiber. The fiber is what's really good for us because in our system, that fiber collects waste and helps us with digestion, okay? Added sugars have no casing, so when they get into your system, they just wreak havoc, okay? And it's big sugar spikes, and it's big dips and it's big spikes, asking your body to overwork, basically, okay? So watching the added sugars when you're looking at nutritional labels is one of the ways to help manage on a nutritional level. And also, if you've been advised by your medical team to watch sugar content, just to have an understanding of what productive sugars are and what non-productive sugars are. And I would say to you, if your fruit has sugar, it's okay. It's okay. Carrots are okay. They're wonderful. Carrots were grown as medicine before they became a household snack. So those kinds of sugars are good for us. There's fiber there. There's minerals and vitamins that our body needs to function properly. It's the added sugars and the processed foods. Okay, those are some ways that we can manage. Looking at our nutritional labels, looking at the fiber content. Back in the 80s when Weight Watchers came out, their formula for weight loss was calories and fiber. That's it. And fiber, I feel like over the years has gotten to be a little bit forgotten. People are talking about sugars and carbohydrates, and fiber is still so important because it's also the key to digestion, okay? So foods that are rich in fiber, low in sugar, that's a green light on your nutritional label, okay? So if you can find a fiber that's, say, 3 or more, that's something you'd want to buy, okay? Does anybody have any questions? Okay. Looking at nutritional labels, just another way to manage our chronic conditions. What this does, we get stability in our energy, meaning we won't have those sugar spikes, okay? Have you ever had a big meal and then you're like, oh, I need a nap? That's your body, right, spiking and then crashing, right? Or you go to a friend's house and they have a birthday party and you eat birthday cake and it's wonderful, and then you go home and you're tired. That's because that sugar makes you, it's up and then you come crashing down after that, okay? So we want to make sure there's a slow and steady spike, not so dramatic spike. That make sense? Okay. Segment number 9, we're going to talk a little about emotional regulation and how it affects self-management. 25 to 30% of adults struggle with stress, anxiety, or emotional dysregulation for a multitude of reasons. Number 1, as life moves along, things change, and not everybody welcomes change. It can be very difficult for some people. And in worst case scenarios, you know, these are big life changes, and we have a lot of loss as we move through life, and we look at things a little differently as we move through life. The effects of having emotional dysregulation can show up in our body, can show up as chronic activation of that stress response, that cortisol and the adrenaline, okay? Making your insides jumpy as if they're at war, but there's nothing there, okay? So what ends up happening, we just end up doing, it's all internal, right? And we end up fatigued and exhausted from the stress inside of us. We have elevated cortisol. This traps the energy. This is what I talked about a minute ago that makes it think your body's in danger, okay? Cortisol puffs us up from the inside to protect our organs. And if you've ever seen any bodybuilders, they tell bodybuilders before competitions to be as relaxed as possible so their bodies don't get inflamed and puffy, okay? And that's from cortisol, from stress. That is one of the stress hormones. Disrupted sleep and digestion can also wreak havoc on our emotional regulation. If you've ever been so exhausted that you just want to cry, that's me. But it really affects all parts of our body, okay? Again, it impairs you physically when you're driving. It impairs you in terms of balance, okay, and stability, right? It can take you off your center if you're tired or if you're emotionally dysregulated. A bad conversation. You could walk out so jumpy and just miss a corner or lose your footing, or it really can affect all of our internal systems. So emotional regulation is really important when it comes to chronic care and self-management, okay? We are trying to work every day to make our lives the best they can be, even with chronic diseases, right? We do our medicine regimens, we do everything the doctors are telling us. We want to keep doing that so that we understand that the other systems are being affected as well. Lastly, I want to talk about social isolation. About 25% of older adults report significant loneliness, and this can come from several reasons. Loss is one of them, the loss of a partner or a spouse. Sometimes children move away, and sometimes people are in a city without their family. That can cause some feelings of loneliness and isolation. And just life changes. You know, if you played bridge every week and all of a sudden you've got arthritis in your hands and you can't really play bridge anymore, that's a life change, and that really can affect people. It takes you out of your routine. It chips at that predictability, right? If you were playing bridge every Wednesday, it chips away at, well, what am I going to do now on Wednesdays? So those are real things, and they have real effects on people, okay? So it affects the emotional system, the nervous system, and can affect the physical system as well, okay? Social isolation, there are a lot of ways to move around that. Church, nature, family, friends, volunteering is a really wonderful way to kind of take you out of yourself. Helping somebody else is always a really wonderful way. And as humans, we have a higher mortality risk if we are isolated because we are not meant to be alone. We are warm and touchable beings, right? So the human touch, believe it or not, is medically shown. And that's why they're sending babies in the NICU home very early, because human touch is so healing that it is showing exceptional, these high marks for these babies that are going home to their families and being held and loved and touched versus being in the hospital. So we need that human touch, and that can be affected with somebody who is living through a little bit of social isolation as well. That's a great time to talk to your doctor and maybe say, hey, I might want to get my feet rubbed, or I might want somebody to come in and do a chair massage, rub your shoulders, things like that. Even at home, if you rub your own feet or they do head massages, there's things you can do for yourself. You can play with your ears. Playing with your ears actually regulates your nervous system, believe it or not, because your ears are connected to your vagus nerve that runs down your entire body. The vagus nerve is what sends a message to your nervous system to say either we're in danger or we're calm and quiet. So when your vagus nerve has good tone, okay, it sends off the right messages to your nervous system. Playing with your ears is directly connected. Do any of you hum or sing? That is also vagal tone. The vibration, okay, sets your whole nervous system up, okay, for calm. It's a really wonderful thing. But playing with your ears, I don't know if you've ever seen anybody. They play with their ears. They probably don't even know what they're doing, but unintentionally, they are resetting their nervous system by playing with the ears. So that's just another way to manage. I've got a little bit of a quiz I'd like to do with you guys to see, based on the things that we've talked about so far. It's multiple choice, so I've got 5 questions. And I'm going to start. What defines a chronic disease? A, short-term illness. B, lasts over 1 year and requires management. C, only affects older adults. And D, always genetic. B, lasts over 1 year and requires management. Very good. What percentage of adults have at least one chronic condition? 20%, 40%, 60%, or 80%? We're at 60 now. Yep, we're at 60. Yep. What system is most affected by chronic disease? Our digestive system, our nervous system, our skeletal system, our respiratory system?
All of the above.
Yes, primarily our nervous system. okay? Because believe it or not, that's the pot that fires off so many physical triggers for us, okay? It is the nervous system. Question number 4. Which factor most directly impacts our blood sugar? Number 1, sleep. 2, B, nutrition. C, social interaction. D, temperature. B, nutrition, yes. Directly impacts our blood sugar, and it's also the one thing we have control over. There are so many things in our environment we don't have control over. It's the one thing we really do have control over and can manage what we put into our mouth. Okay, question number 5. What is self-management? A, avoiding medical care. B, managing health through daily decisions. C, only taking medication. And D, exercising daily. B, yes, correct. Managing health through daily decisions, which we all have the power to do.
Did we pass or fail?
You all pass with flying colors. I'm going to talk for a moment about pain management. Chronic pain is influenced by inflammation, nervous system sensitivity, and stress. We, at the Good Health Network, we approach this a little differently than your medical team would. We approach this with education, movement strategy, breathing techniques, and lifestyle adjustment. We do not aim for perfection. We want you to live a life that is predictable, okay? With your being, with your possessions, with your schedules, with your medications, with your appointments. We want you to have a life that is regulated so that you are not worrying or getting into a nervous situation, okay, that you're going to have to come back from, okay? So the goal is that regulation, and that's what we do at the Good Health Network. Medication and medical management is something else that we need to do as we, move about with chronic diseases. And medications are important. They address our symptoms. Sometimes the best strategy is pairing medication with a lifestyle adjustment, okay? It's kind of like if anybody in here has been in psychotherapy and on medication, they will give you the medication and pair it with talk therapy, okay, to get an actual, real, measurable result, okay? So our best outcomes, they happen when lifestyle is influenced as part of a treatment strategy. We support this by understanding medication, encouraging adherence. We help create a system if somebody doesn't have one for their medications. We can help people get organized so they know in the morning, this is what I need, this is where it is. In the evening, this is what I need, this is where it is. Again, more predictability, right, in our daily living. We also, we integrate our lifestyle changes, but we do this one little habit at a time. We have found that our best results come from stacking habits, not telling you, no more sugar, bye-bye, good luck. We don't do that. We take it and we break it down, and we say, okay, tomorrow morning for breakfast, instead of having oatmeal with brown sugar and butter, what if you have in a smaller dish some oatmeal with brown sugar and a little bit of butter, pair it with a hard-boiled egg so that your body doesn't send up a sugar spike. We influence people that way, okay? So we try and integrate lifestyle changes. Food pairing is one of the things that we do. I am a nutritional counselor, so that's one of the things that we do. And we explain why food can be paired certain ways, and everybody's different, but it affects the system the same way. So if you like apples for a snack, apples are great, filled with water. An apple in the afternoon can give you as much energy as a cup of coffee. If you've got that 3 p.m. slump in the afternoon, apples are great. They're filled with fiber, filled with water. They do produce a little bit of an insulin spike because there's natural sugars. And again, your body's looking for glucose to break down. If you pair that apple with a slice of cheese or peanut butter, you're bringing that spike down to something more steady, something that your body can actually work with, okay? So food pairing is something that I do a lot of. And we get down into people's preferences and, personal preferences and menu planning to help with the understanding of managing chronic conditions. Sleep and emotional regulation. We emphasize sleep routines. We talk about predictability. We talk about breath work and relaxation techniques to help people shift. Your body at 7 o'clock at night will start producing melatonin. It's your body's way of telling you we're getting ready to unwind. It's going to be time to rest. Some people don't fall right to sleep. Some people don't have a system. We work with breath work to help people relax and get into that sleepy time system. And also how to relax. We do guided imagery. We do it for sleep. We do it for pain. And we do it for digestion. Breath work is really important for digestion as well. We're going to get to that in a minute. So the outcomes here is improved recovery, because if we can help you sleep, you will have better recovery. Better mental clarity. A slept mind is much more clear than a non-slept mind, right? And as we get older too, our memory starts to fade just naturally, right? The caps on our neurons, they shrink a little bit with time. And sometimes our memory gets a little foggy, a little brain fog sometimes. The more slept you are, the more clear cognition you will have, hands down. Okay, so I encourage the naps. I encourage sleeping through the night if you can. If you get up once, fine. Twice, okay. 3 or 4 times, I would call your medical team. But good sleep is good across the board. And that's what the Good Health Network does. We really kind of take these non-medical techniques and incorporate them into daily living. The nutritional focus. Nutrition impacts, and we talked about this, our blood sugar, inflammation, and our energy production. Like I was talking about the ding dong. If you're tired and you wake up in the morning and you have a ding dong for breakfast, you might think you're up and energized. 20 minutes later, you're going to be tired again. If you have that ding dong and maybe have a hard-boiled egg or something with it that's protein, you might not crash as hard, but you're still going to have that huge sugar spike. Okay, so just something to note. For energy. What we do at the Good Health Network, and this is how we approach nutrition, with practical, accessible guidance. We have tips and ideas for you specifically. So what we do is we do an assessment at the very beginning, and we find out about your life, and we find about who you are and what your preferences are, and where you are today with your state of being. And then we can take it from there, and we send information to our team, and we write a report, and then we can go and we can, push out guidance in an 8-week cycle. That's what we do. We meet for 8 weeks, once a week. Nutrition is foundational to all other pillars of health. It is 80% of our life, nutrition, okay? I don't know if you know anybody who's ever eaten their way out of diabetes, but there are several people who've been diagnosed with diabetes 2 and have eaten their way out of that. And it very much happens, and it's a real thing because once you get into diabetes, your system internally changes. Everything changes. So nutrition has such an important role. It can actually prevent and reverse some of those physical symptoms of diabetes. And we focus on whole foods, healthy eating. We talk about whole foods. I'm sure you've all heard it over and over. We take a deep dive at the Good Health Network because we want to tell you also how to shop. Do you buy frozen fruit and vegetables? Do you buy canned fruits and vegetables? Or would you stick with fresh? And why? And is there a cost difference between the two? We dive into all of that and tell you how to maximize your budget. Even if you're not on a fixed budget, everything is extremely expensive now. And so who doesn't want to save a few pennies? But you want to get the nutritional value. So I did a bunch of research, and I looked and I said, well, is frozen better than fresh? And is canned better than frozen? And believe it or not, frozen is the way to go. Everything is frozen at their peak, meaning if strawberries are picked, they're frozen immediately. And that means you're getting the freshest that's frozen. Okay, economically, it tends to be a little less than fresh anyway. And so at the Good Health Network, that's part of what we do. We get into your diet. and we talk about food, and we talk about how to get it, where to get it, what it has in it for you, benefits and risks. We go through all of that together. We explain the science about balancing out nutrients in your food. And for us, I would rather see you have smaller, more nutrient-dense meals than bigger, fluffy meals, okay? As we're getting older, nutrition is becoming more critical to our daily function and how we manage our chronic conditions. And so if we're eating food that is really good for us, we might not feel as hungry as we used to feel. I'd rather you have the food that's good for you. That's what we focus on, nutrient density versus empty calories, okay, and the difference between the two. So that's how we work with nutrition. Does anybody have any questions on nutrition? Okay. Basically, I gave you a little bit of how the Good Health Network works, and I'm allowed to talk about that now. We work with individuals and groups. And what we do is we offer personalized education and support. So we take an assessment, we write a report, we show it to our medical team, and depending on the individual, I can tell you most everybody we work with, it's never just one thing. It's never just sleep, it's never just nutrition. We're a whole body connected, right? And so everything affects everything. So we like to take a very comprehensive approach. And we do movement, we do breath work, we do guided imagery, we do for pain management, for whatever the symptoms might be. We work alongside the medical team, we work alongside the diagnosis to enhance that quality of life. Does anybody have any questions about that? Okay, because we feel at the Good Health Network, chronic disease develops over time. And if you have chronic disease, it doesn't mean you will always have chronic diseases, okay? Arthritis there's 100 different types of arthritis. The root of arthritis is inflammation, okay? It doesn't mean you're gonna always get all the different types of arthritis. So everybody's very individual. The one thing we also do in our sessions is movement. So we do some stretching. We do a lot of balance work. And then we usually walk. And then there's education. And the education is very in-depth. We talk about the science of what's happening in our bodies and how we can use non-medical therapies to help combat any physical symptoms that we're having. So that's what we do. We do an 8-week cycle, and I can tell you I've got 4 people who are going on 3 years from the 8-week cycle because they want to know more. And that's what we do. We take that deep dive in. So, does anybody have any questions? Okay.
Where are you located?
We're in cooperation with St. Louis County Parks. We're everywhere. So we're north, we're south, we're west. We come here, we come across the river. We go everywhere. I go to some people's homes. Other people like to be at like a rec center where we can walk on the track and that kind of thing. It depends. If you wanted to do this, I would come to you. But it's wherever somebody's comfortable. Not everybody wants to be at home. Ted.
Does insurance cover what you do?
We take insurance. So we are covered with all the Medicare, all the insurance companies. Yes, we do not put any financial burden on our clients. So everything is submitted through insurance. And they are lifestyle codes. They will not bump into your physical therapy codes. They won't bump into your occupational therapy codes. These are very distinctive codes that we are billing through for these various symptoms.
That includes Medicare as well?
Medicare as well, yes.
Bonus.
Yes, yes. And actually Medicare helped me, I own the business. Medicare actually helped me build the business. Because there are about $8 billion of services a year that go unused. And some of these lifestyle services are those services. So we want to kind of capture that and grow that and bring that to you with no financial burden. Yes?
Do you discuss toxins in our food and water?
We do. I don't know a lot about PFAS, but we're learning. But we do talk about toxins in our food and water. I have a whole thing on water and filtration and how we measure up in St. Louis. Believe it or not, we've got excellent tap water, and it needs to be treated regularly because we've got our rivers that converge. We don't have mountains. So our water has to be treated frequently, but we have some of the best water in the country. Number one is Boston. Number two is New York City, believe it or not, because they're flanked with the mountains and they have filtration systems. The best bottled water is obviously Fiji. It's untapped at the source. That's something else we talk about is food handling. And when you go to the store and you buy your food, if your food is cut up already into cubes, that means probably 4 or 5 people have handled your food. I'm going to use watermelon as an example. If you buy a whole watermelon and you take it home, nobody's touched it except the guy who picked it, right? If you buy watermelon that's cubed in the plastic container, you've got the people that picked it, the people that cut it, the people that shipped it, the people that clean. So you're going on down the line, which increases our risk for foodborne illness. Okay? Just something to remember. Even with cheeses, I buy blocks of cheese and I have a little hand grater and I go. Your cheeses that are sliced, cubed, have also been handled multiple times. Just something to be aware of, but that's what we talk about. We talk about preservatives in our food. We talk about additives, and do we understand what they are? We look at labels and ingredients, and the United States used to have a regulation where you had to have the first 5 ingredients on your labels, right? If you look at your bread from 1974 and your bread from right now, your nutritional labels, the ingredients list, went from like 4 and 5 to probably 12. And there are things you would never, you go, what is that? Our food is heavily, heavily bleached and filled with preservatives for shelf life and aesthetics. But yes, we do talk about that. Yeah, we get into that. Yeah, Ted.
What are your thoughts on washing fruits and vegetables?
I think it's a great idea. I think if you can eat as clean as possible, if you can get your produce organic, your apples might go bad in 3 days, but that's what happens when they're real, right? I would say to you, clean your veggies. I don't use that spray. Some people do. You could use a little bit of water and baking soda. Is really good to get rid of herbicides and pesticides. It neutralizes the acid in those chemicals. Baking soda does. So that helps clean. I've done that before with strawberries. Put them in a bowl, fill it with water, a couple teaspoons of baking soda. Some people even put vinegar in there with the baking soda. You can definitely do that. It's very hard to get around how our food is grown these days. It just is. So cleaning your produce is a wonderful thing. I recommend that for sure. I think it's risky if you don't. I know somebody who eats blueberries right out of the carton, and I'm just worried. It's very risky. But I would suggest cleaning your fruit, definitely. Anybody else have any questions? Yes.
Cyclosporiasis is kind of nasty right now,
Yes.
and they're recommending that you wash your fruit, but some of it is almost impossible to do, such as leaf lettuce.
Right.
And things like that, because it's kind of hard to scrub up.
A head of lettuce. So I'm very big. I don't do bagged lettuce ever. I'm very big on my lettuce. I have to pick it and cut it and clean it, and I take the leaves individually and I spread out paper towels and I wash my lettuce and I dry my lettuce. It is so full of water that makes it very risky for health and foodborne illness because it's so filled with water that mold can grow and fungus can grow and all of the bacteria can grow in there. But I would recommend if you're buying your lettuce, I would buy a head of your lettuce and wash it yourself and try and wash your produce the best you can to get rid of those pesticides and herbicides. Yes?
So basically, like lettuce, you would go to the iceberg where you could pull off those outside ones and throw them away.
You could pull off the outside ones. You can go to, I do a lot of romaine lettuce, and I like the green lettuces and the purple lettuces. Whatever your preference is, yeah, you can look at the outside leaves, and if they look, not great, get rid of them. Clean them real good. Something that I used to do with my iceberg lettuce is I would take it and I would pound it and then pull out the core and then let the water run through that opening there. And
From Tupperware?
I don't remember where I learned it, but it worked, and I was like, this is so neat. And yeah, so that's a little kitchen hack, but something you can do to make sure your lettuce is clean if it seems like it's a little more difficult.
This is environmental, but instead of paper towels, you could get those white sacks, flour sack, things are called towels.
Yes.
And that's what I keep in the bag, and I hardly ever use paper towels anymore. I use that for spills, I use that for my lettuce, blueberries.
It's
Yeah,
great.
That way you save the paper towels.
It's great, and little things like that. Or it's environmental, but it all matters, right? It really matters, and taking some accountability and awareness for the foods that we're buying and how we're ingesting these things, right? We have to remember that we're feeding ourselves. And so everything that we put in our body, whatever we can do, is beneficial. And I have a whole thing also on chemicals in our sheets, in our clothes, and that's a whole nother, that's a whole nother topic. But this was really just chronic disease self-management. That's what today is all about. And I hope I've given you a little bit of information and then more information in terms of the Good Health Network. And certainly if there's anything we can do to help you along with your daily living, we'd be happy to. Yes.
Do you have dietitians on staff?
Yes.
Are they specialized dietitians, like a renal dietitian?
A renal? Yes. I have two of those actually.
Okay. I'm so confused right now. I was recently diagnosed with CKD.
Okay.
And, I've been trying to, when I look at the suggested diets, I'm just so totally confused. Some of them are very specific. You can't have any dark sodas. Some people say I can't eat tomatoes, but other people say I can. I have to stay away from phosphates, potassium.
It's a lot. It's a lot of information. I'm sorry you're going through that. But we do actually, and I have a kidney specialist who is actually very close on our team because a lot of people are ending up with kidney disease from their medications. And so he's been someone we've been talking to a lot. If you have any questions, please, you can call me, and I'd be happy to talk to him, talk to you, and see if there's something we can do. Okay? Does anybody else have any questions before I wrap this up? Okay. I want to say thank you so much for having me. This was wonderful. I hope you all learned a little bit of something. And if there's anything I can do for you in the future, you all have my contact information. I would love to hear from you.